Hello, beautiful souls. I'm so excited to be here. I have such a funny story. So, yesterday I recorded the message that you're about to hear, except I forgot to hit the record button. So, I talked for a good 20 minutes to nobody. Yeah, fun, right? But hey, it's life. Apparently, it wasn't time for me to deliver this message. So, we're going to hop into it. So, we've been talking about relationships and what happens emotionally when we're dealing with relationships, and not just romantic relationships or intimate relationships, but relationships with family and friends and coworkers and all of that, because everybody has the ability to hurt us. And that's what I deal with a lot. Is a lot of individuals are like, why do people treat me this way? Why do people do these things? And so I want to tap in and make sure that you're educated in regards to how to be able to navigate these emotions and how to be able to stop these things from happening, because so often we are so accustomed to being the fireman where we're running around putting out all the fires, and we have no notification, no nothing, and it's just whichever fire is the hottest is the one we're putting out that day. So what I want to be able to teach you is, let the fireman relax for a while, and let's put up some smoke detectors in our life so we start to recognize when things are starting to happen, and we can address it before the fire actually starts. So, today, what I want us to jump in and talk about is understanding what happens physically when emotions are coming up. Because not only do our emotions from similar past wounds show up through our most recent hurt, because like I stated in the last video, if somebody yells at you or you start to feel abandoned or taken advantage of, it's not just that one incident that is bringing all that hurt. It's like you sounded a bell, and every time you felt abandoned or rejected or whatever it is, all of those come to the forefront because you've never dealt with them. So it's like you just open the gate for all of them to run forward. And so then what happens is our body has a chemical reaction, which is making releasing the past much more difficult. And I bet a lot of you were unaware of that. Okay, because our emotions trigger parts of our brain and the body stress response, which increases the difficulty of letting things go. So think about this: when you're in the womb and your mother is whatever she's going through, like whatever she eats, you absorb. Well, also imagine that every emotion has a chemical. So if your mother was stressed out during pregnancy, if your mother was full of anxiety, if your mother was going through abuse, if she had all this fear, then guess what emotions are being fed to you? The same is true for positive things. If the mother had a happy pregnancy and she was always joyful and excited, and all those came to you too. So let's go and look. Like, oftentimes when we look at, as a psychosomatic practitioner, when we're working on healing people with diseases and disorders and addictions, a lot of what we do is we go back to try to understand what it was like when you were in the womb. Like, what kind of pregnancy did your mother have? Because sometimes those chemicals are part of your foundation, and we just have to rewire that. Okay. So today I want to talk to you about how emotional pain has a physical cause, and the difficulty releasing it isn't a weakness of character. So I really want to emphasize that point. Like, you see some people and you're like, why is it so hard for them to get over something? Or you're questioning yourself, like, why is it so hard for me to get over this? But understand that there's things going on in the background that you're unaware of. Okay. And so what happens is when you start to feel this pain, our brains react immediately. And so when you discover that you've been betrayed or rejected or your loved one is gone, your brain and your body react immediately. And so what happens is your brain starts to activate a series of physical responses, resulting in chemical production that affects your thoughts and your feelings. And some of these are is like your limbic and emotional brain reacts to your emotional pain or trauma. So this activates your stress response, producing fear and anxiety. Okay. So just think about that. So sometimes when you're starting to fear or anxiety, it can be activated. Okay. Extreme emotional trauma can result in PTSD, which is post traumatic stress disorder. And I say that the whole world is probably still suffering from PTSD from what happened with COVID. And you're starting to see it. Look at all the crime, look at all the things that are happening that we really were not seeing as often. And so part of PTSD, it makes changes to the brain which can be long lasting. And the result is extreme emotional sensitivity that is affecting relationships with others, yourself, your environment. Okay. And then our prefrontal cortex, the thinking part of our brain, becomes stressed, which makes it difficult to think clearly, and it may cause you problems with your memory. So, how often do things happen and you're like, oh God, I just can't remember? Well, part of it is if you are stressing your brain and you're stressing this prefrontal cortex, it can create memory issues. Okay. Now, this isn't to scare anyone because guess what? A lot of these things we can fix ourselves just by how to learning how to respond to things. Okay. So, when the emotional pain triggers our stress response, our body's response to loss and betrayal is ancient. Okay. And because what happens is we need people to survive both physically and emotionally. And your body has developed physical responses to help you stay alive. Many of these make it difficult to release painful memories. So, how is that? Okay. So, let me pull up my notes and now I'm going to pull it up. Okay. So, your stress response, also known as flight, fight, and freeze, activates your stress hormones. Okay. So, adrenaline is produced by your adrenal glands on top of your kidneys. That is released. Okay. So, being rejected, betrayed, or losing your loved one is certainly stressful, correct? So, adrenaline focuses your attention on the painful experience. And guess what happens if we're focusing on something? This focus makes it difficult in letting go. It's hard to let it go because you have this chemical telling you to focus on it. Okay. Norepinephrine, that is produced by your adrenal glands and the brain. And it's very similar to adrenaline, except this is combined with adrenaline and it's designed to help you run away or fight to save your life. So imagine you're feeling betrayed or rejected. So you got this adrenaline pumping, then you got this norepinephrine pumping. And so what it's coming in is it's designed to help you to be able to run away or fight to save your life. So, you know, think of that, and I often use animals about how they shake if they feel like their life is in danger. It's the same thing. These chemicals are produced and they're designed to help you run. Okay. So the challenge with emotional wounds is that there's no place to run to. You have no place to run to because they're coming with you. They're stuck with you until you learn to let them go. So what ends up happening is we end up, as the old folks say, stewing in our own juices. And that makes it difficult to let go of what truly happened. Okay. The next chemical that is released is cortisol. And that is activated by the brain and produced by the adrenal glands. And this is a stress hormone which does the most damage because guess what it does? It weakens your immune system. It can also mess up your digestion system. And it can cause you to gain weight. So the stress hormones can save your life when you need to react immediately. Like if you have to jump out of the path of a speeding car or, whatever that may be. With emotional pain, they interfere with your health and make it difficult to let go. So, this is why so many people have issues with their adrenal glands. And adrenal glands end up affecting your kidneys, they end up affecting your heart, your liver. So, when they are stressed out and fatigued, it turns into a whole different situation within your body. Okay. The next thing that happens is that our sex hormones are affected. You might not think that emotional pain would affect your sex hormones, but it does because estrogen increases in both men and women, making them more sensitive to stress. And since we women have more estrogen to begin with, guess what? Who it affects more? You guessed it, us. And the higher estrogen level in men lead to a decrease in testosterone. So high estrogen levels in both men and women can lead to an increase in depression. And when depressed, it's more difficult to let go of the hurt and pains of the past. Okay. The next thing is our neurotransmitters. Those are chemicals produced by the brain. Your brain reacts immediately to every change in emotion. Your brain responds to the painful feeling by producing neurotransmitters, which act with the other body chemicals that we've already talked about. So when you think about dopamine, when you're stressed, it acts on the very front of your brain, the prefrontal cortex, and it makes it difficult to think straight. And guess what happens when we can't think straight? You can't logically think through what is happening to you. Okay? Now, the next word I'm going to butcher, but I will put it in the chat of how to spell it. But it's acetylcholine, which can interfere with your sleep. And guess what happens when we're feeling the ways that we're feeling emotionally? We can't sleep. So, what happens when we can't sleep? And that means we can't think well. And then we become more sensitive emotionally. And then we have a greater difficulty handling the ordinary stresses of life. Okay. So, glutamate is also critical for our brain and our health. And when you have too much, which can happen with all of the stress of betrayal, rejection, hurt, all of that, then guess what the side effect of all that is? Depression. Okay. And then we have something called GABA, which is gamma aminobutyric acid. Look, science was never my strength, but it's okay. We're just going to keep going, right? So, what is this? It is wonderful for being calm and relaxed, but when you have too much, as with extreme stress, the reaction is the complete opposite. And guess what that creates, my love? Welcome anxiety. As if none of you have ever experienced that in your life. So, as we went through this lesson, I wanted to show you how physical changes occur due to the extreme emotional pain. And these are changes you had no control over. Your body responded immediately to your emotional reaction to what happened. So, the difficulty that you've been having in releasing the past and moving forward is not your fault. It is not. Because what we're going to do over the next few days is you're going to start to learn strategies of how to overcome what's happened in your life. Okay? Because your mental reactions to being hurt is hard. And we need to understand what those emotional reactions are. Okay? So, what I want you to do today is I will put this in the message is how to prepare your mind, your subconscious mind, and how to prepare to release some of the pain. Okay. All right. Well, thank you, beautiful souls, for listening to me today. I enjoyed speaking to you as I was trying to sip on my tea. Um, However, I will see you, beautiful souls, next week because today is Friday and I will be busy this weekend enjoying life. Well, I don't want to say the word busy because I'm not really busy. I'm just going to be out having fun and living life. So I love you all and I will see you on Monday.